How did you come to join a union?
Well, I first joined a union when I was 16 years of age. That was 1980. That was the National Union of Tailor and Garment Workers,
All
who
right.
obviously been swallowed up by the GMB now.
Yeah.
But it was, I think, it was in the blood more than anything else, because the family's been trade union members, and back then trade unions were, massive in the sense of numbers. But we, me personally, joined because I worked in a factory and they were notorious for being a bit bicker towards you. Being a 16-year-old, you were sent here, do this, do that. And I used to tell them, no, I'm not doing it. You know, Let somebody else, I did it yesterday, or, it's somebody else's turn. So I became a union member to get the backing, so that, if anything did come toward about it, I had somebody to turn to. And as a 16-year-old, you're a little bit green around the ears, but I would never, ever accept being, if I was asked, and asked politely, quite happily. But to be told, because I was a young teenager, you will do, I put my foot down and I said, no, I won't. And that's how it sort of carried on.
We're trying to highlight in the Autumn of Resistance different forms of resistance. One of them's the right to food, and the other one is the right to be in a trade union. So can you tell us a bit about trade unions in the food industry?
Well, BAFAWU, the Bakers Union, are 175 years old this year. And we've been, well, we are the oldest trade union, I believe. So we've always been in the food industry. And our aim is to protect food workers from exploitation, from abuse, from racism, whatever it is. And we have done it pretty well over the years. We're a small but progressive trade union, and we will always stand by each and every member. No quibbles. It will always, anybody's got an issue, we will answer it and stand by them.
That's great, thank you. And how many people in the food industry are actually organised?
That is just it's, I believe it's minimal to what we can get and achieve. So many food workers are being told by employers they're not allowed to join a trade union because we don't recognize them, and that's naughty, very naughty. Um, each and every one of us have a right to join a trade union, and that's what we're doing down here in Cornwall, is making sure people are aware of that right. They can, and if they wish to, they can join a trade union.
Now, how have you set about recruiting people into the union?
Well, down here, we're a bit sparse, it's not big towns, it's the city's probably only about 2,000 more than what we've got here, people wise. It's about, we use social media, and social media can be brilliant, but you tend to speak to the converted after a while, because everybody who is your friends, your followers, are all in unions or all involved with a social justice movement in some way. So what I have planned and we have started doing in West Cornwall at the moment is on foot, face to face, meeting the people in the streets, people we've never seen before, we've never connected with, go into cafes, go into shops, go into bars, and handing them a leaflet. Look, read this when your manager's out the way, take it home, have a look. If you're interested, contact us and we'll take it further. I believe the personal touch is much better than a a bit piece on social media, and so far so good. We're starting to get people interested, starting people to get turn up to little meet the union days events, street stalls, shopping centres. Just stand there. You know, when you see somebody come along, do you work in hospitality? Do you work in the food trade? Have a read of this. If you want to ask questions, please do. It's simple tactics, but it's effective now because it's something new to young people. They only know social media. They only know the mobile phone, you know, chat lines, etc. But now they've discovered, hang on a minute, you know, somebody in my age group is willing to explain to them and talk to them. And it is, and the chats going around, you know, Falmouth, we hit Saturday, people are talking, well, that man from the Bakers Union, he really spoke to me, like, you know, and he explained stuff to me. It's frightening to think that a lot of people in the late teens, early 20s have never heard about unions, or have heard of unions but know nothing about how they join, what they're all about, what's involved. And that's exactly what the Bakers Union in Cornwall is doing, is going out there and educating and giving that information to the people who are interested in unions in some way. And hopefully, you know, we'll hook the fish and we'll grow even bigger.
So,
That sounds really interesting.
what would your advice be then, Rob, to a young person, you know, late teens, early 20s, maybe, in a relatively small workplace, in terms of their first steps on getting organised in their workplace?
Well, my first advice is seek advice from a trained organizer. We will guide you step by step how to go about it. One-to-ones with your work colleagues, group meetings, social media meetings, membership forums, etc. But always seek advice, ask questions. You will get from the Bakers Union 100% support from somebody who has been in that position and has gone on and learnt about the trade union movement. It won't be somebody fresh, somebody new. It will be always somebody who will be at your side and take you through the motions.
What's the best way to get hold of the Bakers Union?
We have, as most unions, the website, you know, on everything we do put on there join.bafau.org. Bafau.org, it's all on there so they can get on there. We'd have put email addresses, phone numbers. I'm quite happy to give out my personal details in this neck of the woods for people. And if it's in a genuine meet the union day, you know, I'll scribble my number down on somebody who is, you know, sort of interested. You have to be careful, of course, but it's, you know, it's a little bit different.
When you do your union days in the street, what do you do?
99.9% of the time we have flags, banners up, so people know who we are. We have a tablecloth, loads of leaflets, but our secret weapon is we talk to everybody who comes by. That's the best way to do it. Say hello. Are you in a union? Would you like to join a union? Do you work in hospitality? Are you allied to the food trade in any way? How's your day going? Just make it a friendly couple of minutes, you know, and it's surprising how many people will stop. Even retired pensioners will come and have a chat about their days in unions. It's wonderful.
Do you link up with other aspects of the food industry? Do you have anything to do with the agricultural workers?
I have done in the past, but it seems to have drifted to the wayside down here because they're so few and far between, and a lot of them who work as a worker in that line of business, the agricultural, are Eastern Europeans.
Mhm.
And the majority of them now who are left, because most of them are starting to venture back home, um, do not speak English. And unless we've got some kind of translator with us, it becomes difficult. So it's been a little bit iffy in the last year, really, to sort of, because I'll sign up anybody who delves in food trade. But it has been difficult. It has, really has.
We've got contacts with European workers through the European left.
Mm.
What would be the best way to use that to help us recruit?
Well, to me, I would try and get straight into where a lot of the workers, especially in our part of the country, are employed and they're housed, not housed, they're in caravans.
Mm,
We used to go and visit where their caravans were sited, because they're all based there. They get into a minibus, they're shipped out to a field and pick the vegetables. They're brought back. Their wages are then paid to them with the deductions of the rent, etc. So they're being sort of manipulated
yeah.
right from the start. But when we used to go out and try and speak to them, that's what I did. I went to where they were staying.
Yeah.
Um, you get a chance to look at the conditions they're living in, which is appalling, to be honest, very appalling.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we've been talking to some of the young people, mainly in Eastern Europe, who are organising, because a lot of the Eastern European countries both send workers out to work abroad and have people coming in to work there. So they are discussing this idea of how you organise migrant workers. I don't think we'll have to play around with this idea and maybe have another conversation about that idea. But I think the idea of organising migrant workers is really important.
Yeah.
And they're doing it. Those kids are doing it in Eastern Europe. Let's see, can we do it?
What I tried to do, Felicity, is pick out an organic leader, somebody who is fluent in or who can speak, English,
Mm,
somebody who can understand what you're explaining to them and they can read English, and we use them as the translator. That's what we used to do. But again, unfortunately, they were the first ones to go because they realized quite quickly how abused they've been. So, they either move on to another job in and around the area, or a few of them, like as recently, have gone back home. But
yeah,
it's all about picking out that certain person who you can trust, who can rely on. And it's all got to be done secretly, not for our benefit, but for theirs, unfortunately, is because they are watched. That's why we couldn't go to the fields to try and help them, to speak to them, because they have, the farmer or the veg employer has
yeah,
got people there monitoring them to make sure they are working, they're picking enough, they're doing this.
yeah.
And we've had occasions where it's become confrontational between myself and said employee.
Interesting.
And you don't want that in front of the people you're trying to help. So it's all
Yeah,
a bit like, let's try another avenue.
yeah,
Let's go to where they live a little bit later on in the evening, because they're all sat round the campfire. You can get in to talk to them a bit better, and there
yeah,
isn't anybody else around because they're not being paid. you know,
Mm.
the boss's favorites, I should say. But
Yeah. You sent me some information about a campaign in Sheffield that's
yep.
been very successful. Could you talk a little bit about the Sheffield campaign?
Yeah, it's from Union Towns, which is a directive from Bakers Union. They've got involved with Sheffield needs a pay rise, and it's become Union Towns as the big group. But there are like Sheffield needs a pay rise, Rotherham, Leeds. We're hoping to start it down here in Cornwall, and it's about exactly what we've been talking about: how to approach youngsters to organize them in their workplace. You know, they actually won a 45% pay rise, you know, each and every one of them, because of the pressure. Every one of them joined the union. And then they all started talking to each other. They all gelled with each other. Then they started asking questions. So union towns advisors, some of the bakers unions, some are employed separately as union towns, got in there and started educating them, training them, organizing them, showing, you know, what they should be asking, what they should be saying, what they should be demanding is the key issue. And they did. They learned it, they spoke with each other, they gelled together, and they started making their demands. Now, all of a sudden, the owners caved in and they got everything they wanted. They were all 0-hour contracts. Now they're full contracts, holiday pay, etc. You know, hourly, you know, constructed hours for them, and they're all on a decent pay. It's not enough, but their money's been, you know, built up, and hopefully next year they'll go in again with more aggression and say, look, we are worthy of better wages.
That's good.
They will the back end of the bakers union as they did this time.
The strike wave we've got at the moment is giving everybody a lot of hope, and making people think they, you know, they could do something.
Yep.
But just for a minute, talking about the right to food again. As a food worker or someone involved in the Bakers Union,
Yep.
what would your thoughts be as to how we should be taking forward the campaign for the right to food?
Well, the right to food campaign is obviously so each and every person in this country and internationally deserves and gets nutritional food daily.
Mm.
Here in the UK, we need to be pushing for higher wages for people in the food industry who actually 24/7 make it, supply it, transport it, and yet we're on, or they are on, one of the lowest wages going. That's not acceptable. And we as a bakers union are going to fight tooth and nail so that £15 an hour can be recognised and paid to each and every one of those people. They well deserve it. We all know they fed the nation through the pandemic, and yet they're the forgotten part of the heroes. You know, if people are like, well, it's over now. No, it's not. You know, they're still feeding the nation. Why? Yes, since the rail strikes and the postal strikes, etc., has been going on, it's started to unify not just trade union members, movements, but the general public. The country has realized there is a change needed. And I believe now's the time, because all these people have got this um, this bit of hope been you know, fed back to them, that there are people willing and trying to care and help them. I think it's time now we stop talking and we started actions now. Let's take to the streets. Let's make this one massive trade union movement of solidarity with our communities at the heart to really, really push this message home. People are striking because they've had enough. The wages are not enough. There's not enough food on the table. There won't be enough money in the bank to pay bills, electric, gas, water, etc. So it's time now with the trade union movement, and it really, really is time that the TUC as a body really stepped up to the plate and led this from the front. Yeah, just the weekend we had a chap who delivers sandwiches part-time, and he was told by his bosses that he couldn't join a union because he was part-time. Well, unfortunately, the tide's turned. He has joined. It's as easy as that, because he understands and he's been told he can join by the trade union.
How do you work with other trade unions in your area?
Well, most trade unions down here in Cornwall actually are members of the Trades Council. That's not to say that they're all heavily involved or turn up every meeting, but what we tend to do is we have use the use of social media to contact each other. Anytime anybody's got an event, we always fire out emails, messages, etc. to get that link up. We've started working with even non-TUC trade unions like the IWW, Acorn, the Renters Union. We're all building that mass unity so that each and every time there's an event on, we've got a crowd of us rather than the odd person or two people. Cornwall People's Assembly, as well as another group who joins in with the trade unions. And it's just starting to roll now, where every time there is an event, you know, A is going to be there, B is going to be there, C is going to be there. But the trade unions, yes, we work as much as we can with the RMT, ASLEF, the CWU, Unite Community as well. The retired section of that, they're involved with different bits and bobs. And the trade union movement itself is growing in Cornwall, and it is great to see. You know, it's busy when you're on the organising end, but it is worthwhile when you see all these different groups of people wanting to be part of it.
That's great. Thank you.